Shelley Duvall has been compared to many things: a Modigliani painting, an extraterrestrial, and a kind of time-traveling neo-flapper. The truth is that she was unique and irreplaceable. She had incredible charisma and gave cinema one of the most harrowing performances of all time as Wendy in The Shining. However, one day, while working on a Steven Soderbergh film in the Texan desert, something struck her. She decided to slip away from Hollywood and disappear for 20 years. The media hunted her down to no avail. Finally, the truth was revealed in the most awful way possible. Let's explore the life of 1907's icon Shelley Duvall and clarify some terrible rumors stemming from Dr. Phil taking advantage of her. Apart from her 2 decades in Hollywood, Shelley Duvall lived most of her life within a 200-meter radius in Texas. She was born in Fort Worth on July 7, 1949, to Bobby Ruth Crawford and Robert Richardson Bobby Duvall. After having 3 more children, all boys, the family eventually settled in Houston. Her father was a cattle auctioneer who later became a criminal lawyer. Her mother succeeded in real estate, founding her own company, Space City Realty, in Houston. As a child, Duvall was energetic, earning the nickname Manic Mouse from her mother. In high school, Duvall was a straight-A student who dreamed of becoming a scientist. However, in 1 grade, her grades began to drop as she became interested in boys and adopted a unique style, including white go-go boots, a pageboy haircut, and large false eyelashes. She started dating a long-haired greaser and riding around in his Ford Mustang. Her aspirations in science ended once and for all after she dropped out of South Texas Junior College in Houston. She met her first and only husband, a long-haired artist named Bernard Sampson. Shelley Duvall's journey into acting was anything but conventional. Duvall recalled meeting her then-partner, artist Bernard Sampson, at a benefit for the astronauts lost in the 1967 Apollo 1 disaster. At the time, she was modeling a daring Rudi Gernreich bathing suit with cutouts. Eager to support Sampson's art career, Duvall began brainstorming ways to make money. Her big break, however, came unexpectedly. While they were staying at Sampson's parents' house, Duvall hosted a party to sell his artwork, hoping to raise enough money to move out. Among the guests were 3 crew members from Brewster McCloud. Charmed by Duvall's quirky energy and unique style, they suggested she be introduced to a couple of art patrons. Little did she know, this was actually a secret audition for Altman and his producer, Lou Adler. Duvall showed up for the meeting in an embroidered Mexican blouse, patched jeans adorned with bells, and carrying a stack of paintings. Lou Adler later described her as a flower. Initially, Duvall thought she'd stumbled into something shady, but after learning about Altman's credentials, she agreed to a Polaroid test. The test, held at the Rose Garden near the Houston Zoo, left Altman stunned. Her unconventional beauty would go on to fascinate many. Some called her the Queen of Awkward Beauty, but Duvall's magnetism was undeniable. Duvall got the role. This marked the start of a fruitful partnership between Duvall and Altman. Over the years, they collaborated on 7 films, a number that seemed to have a curious significance in her life. Their first project, Brewster McCloud, was already in production when Altman met Duvall. In this whimsical bird-themed fantasy, she played Suzanne, a bird-like tour guide at the Houston Astrodome. While the film received mixed reviews at the time, it has since gained a cult following. Duvall's journey from selling paintings to starring in Altman's films was as unpredictable as it was extraordinary. Her unique beauty made her a star, not because she fit Hollywood's mold, but because she shattered it. In 1971, Shelley Duvall took on another supporting role in Robert Altman's McCabe and Mrs. Miller. She played Ida, a mail-order bride who arrives in town to marry Bart Coyle. Her performance left a lasting impression, particularly the knowing glance she shares with Mrs. Miller at Bart's funeral. Altman described the film as an anti-Western, breaking away from the usual Western cliches. Shot in the chilly landscapes of British Columbia during late 1970, the movie premiered on June 24, 1971. Over time, it gained widespread critical praise, with Julie Christie even snagging an Oscar nomination for Best Actress. By the time Thieves Like Us hit screens in 1974, Duvall had earned top billing under Altman's direction. She portrayed Kichi, a mechanic's daughter in Depression-era Mississippi who falls for an escaped convict, played by Keith Carradine. The movie was based on Edward Anderson's novel, which had also inspired the 1948 film They Live by Night. Her charm was utterly natural and irresistible, as if she were simply herself on screen. Thieves Like Us proved Duvall had real acting chops. She was confident to explore roles with other directors, though she stayed with Altman for 3 more films before branching out. Around this time, her fame began to rise, and she earned the nickname Texan Twiggy, a nod to the famous British model of the 1960s. In 1974, Duvall and her husband Samson decided to move to LA to focus on her career. They'd been married since 1970 and settled into a small cabin above a 1-car garage near Griffith Park Observatory. Unfortunately, their marriage ended later that same year. At the time, Hollywood was undergoing a creative revolution, shifting toward a bold, new Hollywood. Duvall found herself swept up in this wave, becoming a muse for one of its most prominent directors. Looking back on her early days in LA, Duvall described them as both exciting and quiet. She spent a lot of time waiting for directors to call, though those calls didn't come as often as she'd hoped. On the flip side, she also attended more glamorous gatherings at the homes of Hollywood big shots, like Superman director Richard Donner. These events, she recalled, were mostly about showcasing young talent. In 1975, Duvall landed her next big role when Robert Altman cast her in Nashville. The film, set over 5 days, follows the lives of various characters in Nashville's country. Duvall played Martha, the niece of Mr. Green, who renames herself La Joan. Although she's supposedly in town to visit her dying Aunt Esther, she spends most of her time chasing musicians. Nashville was a sprawling, ambitious project with 24 main characters, an hour of musical performances, and multiple storylines. Paramount released it in the summer of 1975, and it was met with widespread acclaim. Critics praised the ensemble cast, particularly Roni Blackley and Lily Tomlin, the film's intricate storytelling, and its rich soundtrack. It racked up 5 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Supporting Actress nods for Blackley and Tomlin. Keith Carradine, I'm Easy, even won Best Original Song. Over the years, Nashville has been hailed as Altman's masterpiece and one of the greatest films ever made. Duvall collaborated with Altman again in Buffalo Bill and the Indians, or Sitting Bull's History Lesson, playing the wife of President Grover Cleveland. However, this 1976 revisionist Western didn't resonate as well as Altman's earlier work. While it struggled domestically, European audiences embraced it, and it even snagged the Golden Bear at the Berlin Film Festival. Later that same year, Duvall headed to New York for a small but memorable role in Woody Allen's Annie Hall. She played a shallow Rolling Stone reporter. During filming, Duvall met Paul Simon, who also appeared in the movie as a record producer. The two began dating and quickly became one of the most talked-about couples of the 1970s. Before Simon, Duvall had been romantically linked to other musicians, including Ringo Starr, who shared her July 7th birthday. But her relationship with Simon seemed more serious, at least for a while. The couple spent some time apart while Duvall worked on Altman's 3 Women, a project that became a breakthrough moment for her career. Filmed over 6 weeks in sunny Palm Springs, 3 Women dives into the peculiar and tangled lives of its characters. At the heart of the story is Millie Lamoureux, portrayed by Shelley Duvall, a naive and self-absorbed health spa worker. Millie, in her quest for companionship, invites her co-worker Pinky, played by Sissy Spacek, to move in as her roommate. The 3rd woman in the title refers to Willie Hart, an enigmatic artist played by Janice Rule. Duvall's performance in 3 Women was nothing short of remarkable. Spacek fondly described her co-star as funny, kind, and deeply dedicated to her craft. Duvall's commitment paid off, earning her widespread acclaim. Even the legendary critic Roger Ebert was captivated. Her portrayal was so powerful that it won her the Best Actress award at the 1977 Cannes Film Festival. In one of the film's most harrowing moments, Millie is forced to deliver a stillborn baby, while Pinky coldly ignores her cries for help. This raw, emotionally charged scene caught the attention of Stanley Kubrick, who later cast Duvall in The Shining. According to Duvall, Kubrick remarked that she was great at crying when offering her the role. Interestingly, Duvall had never met Kubrick before landing the part. Instead of sending her a script, he mailed her a copy of Stephen King's novel and instructed her to read it. But while Duvall was preparing for her next big role, her personal life was falling apart. Her relationship with Simon had been on shaky ground, and on New Year's Day 1979, just as she was about to board a Concorde flight to London to begin filming The Shining, Simon ended things. To make matters worse, Duvall later learned that Simon had been having an affair with her friend, Carrie Fisher. The timing of the breakup couldn't have been more brutal, but Duvall threw herself into her work, delivering one of the most unforgettable performances in horror history. Shelley Duvall wasn't just dealing with Stanley Kubrick's intense filmmaking process, she was also grappling with her own struggles. Reflecting on her relationship with Simon, she admitted his controlling tendencies left her feeling stifled, as though her inner child had been silenced. Her emotional turbulence was evident even before filming began. She cried throughout her flight to London. Unlike her previous project, Three Women, which took 6 weeks to complete, The Shining required a staggering 56 weeks. A fire at EMI Elstree Studios in early 1979 destroyed the Overlook Hotel set, causing delays. But the real reason for the extended schedule was Kubrick's infamous perfectionism. He worked 6 days a week, often filming for up to 16 hours a day. For Duvall, this meant pushing herself to emotional extremes to convincingly portray Wendy, the terrorized wife of Jack Nicholson's deranged character. While Nicholson lived in London with his girlfriend Angelica Houston, Duvall opted for a small flat near the studio in Hertfordshire, sharing the space with just her dog and 2 birds. She admitted that after a while, her body began to rebel. She explained that waking up knowing she had to cry all day sometimes made her cry even more, and she often thought she couldn't do it, but somehow managed to. She added that even Jack had remarked he didn't know how she did it. The experience was grueling, but Duvall's commitment to the role left an indelible mark on film history. Kubrick reportedly instructed the cast and crew to avoid comforting Duvall during her breakdowns. It would interfere with her performance. Nicholson even admitted that Kubrick picked on her more than anyone else. Duvall's stress became so severe that her hair began falling out in clumps. Despite the emotional strain, The Shining remains an iconic masterpiece, with Duvall's haunting performance standing as one of the film's most unforgettable elements. One scene in The Shining holds a Guinness World Record for the most takes of a dialogue scene. It features Scatman Crothers and young Danny Lloyd, who played Wendy Torrance, discussing Danny's psychic ability to shine. Kubrick had them repeat the scene an astonishing 148 times. Another famously grueling moment, the staircase scene where Wendy confronts Jack, was shot 127 times. Reflecting on the experience, Duvall admitted that it had been a difficult scene, but turned out to be one of the best in the film. Duvall's performance stands out as one of the most naturalistic in horror cinema, especially in a film as stylized as The Shining. She's the emotional anchor, the warm light in the film's otherwise icy, oppressive atmosphere. She's who carries the audience through the terror, and when Jack bursts through the door with his infamous "Here's Johnny" line, it's Wendy's humanity and courage that make the moment so powerful. In the 1980s, Shelley Duvall stepped into a wider variety of roles, starting with her iconic portrayal of Olive Oyl in Robert Altman's Popeye. While the film later gained popularity on VHS, it didn't quite resonate with audiences when it hit theaters in 1980. Altman, once a darling of critics, faced rejection in Hollywood and retreated to Paris to focus on low-budget adaptations of stage plays. However, Roger Ebert praised Duvall's performance, noting she was born to play Olive Oyl, and commended Altman for transforming a comic strip into clever, sophisticated entertainment. Duvall went on to star in 3 more films during the decade. Her next big role was in Terry Gilliam's fantasy adventure Time Bandits, alongside John Cleese and Sean Connery. Co-written by Gilliam and fellow Monty Python alum Michael Palin, and funded by George Harrison, the film premiered in the UK on July 2, 1981, and in the US on November 6, 1981. It was a hit, debuting at #1 at the US box office and earning $36 million on a modest $5 million budget. Duvall also made a lasting mark as the creator and host of Fairy Tale Theater, which aired from 1982 to 1987. This beloved series reimagined classic fairy tales and became a pioneer in cable television, featuring an all-star cast that included Joan Collins, Carrie Fisher, Mick Jagger, Liza Minnelli, Vanessa Redgrave, and Christopher Reeve. Renowned directors like Tim Burton, Francis Ford Coppola, and Eric Idle contributed to its success. Duvall not only introduced each episode, but also appeared in several, including Rapunzel, where she starred alongside Jeff Bridges and Gena Rowlands. These days, reimagining classic fairy tales like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty with modern twists has become a popular trend. But Shelley Duvall was ahead of the curve with her 1980s series, Fairy Tale Theater. Later in the episode, Duvall and Bridges also take on the roles of Rapunzel and the prince. When Rapunzel meets the prince for the first time, she innocently asks him to explain what a man is. She's never met one before. Bridges responds with a cheeky line, "Let me come up there, and I'll show you." Things take a darker turn when the witch tricks the prince and pushes him out of the tower window. He hits his head, and thanks to some unsettling 1980s CGI, blood streams from his eyes, leaving him blind. It's the kind of nightmare-inducing moment that wouldn't fly in today's children's programming, but was oddly captivating back then. Despite the media's harsh portrayal, Duvall's small Texas community embraced her as a beloved local figure, not a forgotten star. She wasn't a tragic, delusional recluse, but a woman navigating the challenges of aging and mental illness with resilience. In 2018, artist Ryan Obermeyer, a childhood fan of Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater, reached out to her out of concern. They shared regular lunches, and Obermeyer even tracked down lost memorabilia from her career, including personal letters sold online, and returned them to her. For her 70th birthday in 2019, he arranged a surprise FaceTime call with Paul Rubens, her Fairy Tale Theater co-star, and organized a celebration at her favorite restaurant, Red Lobster. Duvall's impact on cinema is undeniable. She was an icon of the 1970s, her unique presence gracing films that have since been enshrined in the National Film Registry for their cultural and historical significance. As Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian once wrote, Duvall embodied a modern yet timeless charm, a neo-flapper with wide-eyed grace and an effortless allure that made her unforgettable on screen. Though she didn't conform to Hollywood's rigid standards of beauty or aging, Duvall never needed to. She had walked away from that world decades earlier, choosing a quieter, more authentic life. On July 11, 2024, Shelley Duvall passed away at her home in Blanco, Texas, from complications related to diabetes. She was 75. For generations of fans, Duvall wasn't just a star, she was a symbol of individuality and creativity. From her unforgettable performances to her groundbreaking work on Fairy Tale Theater, her legacy shines brightly. So, as we bid farewell to Shelley Duvall, we remember her not just for her talent, but for her humanity. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time.